Good morning, folks. It is a quiet Saturday morning. I'm actually just here with my son doing a little bit of paperwork, and then we're going to go have fun for the rest of the day. But I've had a lot on my mind in the past few weeks about our next machine here. And I thought, it'll probably be helpful to bring you guys along, both to share kind of what we're thinking, but then also, frankly, to welcome input. So, do we absolutely need a machine today? We don't. I want to be clear about that. But what I'm thinking about has been either a lathe, a horizontal machining center, or a 5-axis. So 5-axis had been what I had been planning on thinking about for quite some time, and we are going to at least try, and that's part of the puzzle here, selling the trunnion, just the trunnion, not this whole machine. We love the machine, but selling the trunnion because this machine generally has work booked for it, so it's been awesome to have the trunnion on here to really learn and get like super comfortable. In fact, I'll walk over here and show you guys the V8 engine. We filmed it, a bunch of 5-axis videos that are on Julie's desk right now to edit. So it's been fun to kind of walk through that basic stuff up to, I wouldn't call it advanced, but certainly a lot more level of comfort. Here is the, let me go say hi to everybody. Here's the V8 engine block, which I think looks freaking awesome. So happy. And in fact, I don't want to use the word easy, but really not that difficult. So the question is, next machine, and here's, I don't think it'll be a lathe. We kind of, well, that's kind of another conversation. We don't necessarily need a lathe. It's quite a bit less expensive. We could use one. There's some other projects that we haven't really shared where we'll need one for it, but to this conversation, I kind of want to focus on the idea of a 4th-axis style horizontal machining center, so that kind of screams productivity, versus 5-axis. The general use of this machine would be for production. So mod vices, the mod vice accessories, the soft jaws, the top jaws, we are able to make those today on our VF2. We're able to keep up with demand, but we won't be once we start getting these running. At least that's my anticipation. And I try to take the emotion out of this and just keep it factual. So, we don't need the machine today, but we will need the machine. And it's, I think, smart to start thinking about where you want to be with your business and then get it there. Not only will that help us massively increase production, but especially with the horizontal machine, which would, without a doubt, have automation, or need to have automation in the form of at least 2, if not 4 or 5 or more pallets on it, then you've got the ability to produce more on each tombstone, as well as have as multiple tombstones. So that machine from the first week or the second week would likely be running at least unattended while we're here, if not overnight. Right now the workflow is basically Jared is tending that machine. Here's some raw material that just came in, and again, it's fine. It works. I have no problems with this, but there's quite a bit more setup work to change the fixturing out, but as we switch between different products and so forth. So really, the horizontal is the right answer and the easy answer. 4-axis work would let us get these done quite well, quite accurately. It would be 2 ops, but it'll probably still be 2 ops for most of these parts, even if it moved to a 5-axis system. There's some ways you might be able to do some of them in 1 op, but it would take longer, compromise tooling, service finishes. It's probably not worth it yet. And in 2 ops is fine, especially when you're running it in an efficient manner like this on a tombstone. So I'm starting to think about this. What machine tool builders do I want to look at? Do I want to go again with the kind of Haas route, which we know the controller, we know the service, we have the reputation with the HFO. Frankly, it's been a great experience. They're coming out with a new EC400 at IMTS with automation. It's probably what I would say is the path of least resistance. Or do we go differently? Why would we go differently? There's I'm trying to keep an open mind. So there's Doosan, there's Okuma, there's DMG, Kitamura. So I've got kind of my list of machine tools builders to think about and look at. But then also, what are the criteria? So horizontals are super foreign to me, and that's actually what kicked this off. Was about 2 weeks ago, the sort of plan had always been a 5-axis machine with automation, and I'd really spent like a year starting to kind of learn who those builders are and what the options are. And now that it's thrown this horizontal into the mix, I'm realizing I've got to kind of learn what's that mindset. How do you size a horizontal? And Rob Lockwood's advice was think about kind of the tombstone and whether it's 4 sides or 6 sides or 8 sides on a tombstone, think about kind of unrolling that as your surface area that you would have on a vertical machining center in terms of part density, but then also access to the parts as you're doing 4th axis work on them. The mod vise right here, but you guys know, here we can walk over. I think the guys have some on the shelves. It's quite a simple part, depending on how you work hold it. Where are those? Here we go. So you'd have to, what you'd do is you'd hold it on the tombstone like this, and then do all your work with the spindle normal to this surface, and then you just rotate the tombstone to do the work that's normal to the angled surface. So relatively simple. So I'm looking at all those criteria again. When it comes down to the other stuff, not just the travel area of the machine, but what feature set, how many pallets, how many tools, what's the footprint of the size, chip evacuation, we probably would be doing mixed metals. I think we would want to have tombstones set up that switch between at least steel and aluminum. So what does that mean? Do you just immediately not care about recycling chips? I think most places try to separate them. I don't know, I gotta think about that more, but in true production and higher volume, recycling matters, chip management matters. It's also kind of like the right thing to do. So I've got to think about all that. Switching gears to the 5-axis, which feels like the cooler option, trying to take the emotion out of it, but many people have sort of said, no, don't go horizontals anymore. Get the 5-axis with the automation, and you can run production on a 5-axis. And I do believe that. It's still very different. You change rigidity, you change machine performance, you change the cost of the machine. I think fewer people have turnkey 5-axis with automation. Ironically, Haas is coming out with the UMC 1000 at IMTS, which has a built-in pallet pool, but the UMC 1000 is that huge machine. It's like a 40-inch travel, and with 5-axis, you don't want the wrong size machine. A big machine is not better because you're trying to do work on small parts. You can't get to the part because when your trunnion tips over, you've got this giant table that's in the way, so you can't get to the area you need to, so you have to lift the part way up off to get to it, and then you've got crazy kinematics or motions. It's just not a good thing. 5-axis machines kind of need to be sized for the work at hand. On the other hand, it seems like you could make the case that 5-axis will still let you have the best of both worlds. So why do we want a 5-axis? That's kind of the problem. We want it to learn, to make videos, to make parts, whether it's parts for what we're doing, R&D, testing, beta stuff, maybe a little bit of job shops type stuff work. I want one because that's why I got into this industry, to learn, to push myself, to have fun, to embrace the technology. So I think that's a plenty of legitimate enough reason, but then you got to make it work. You got to tie it into your business model. And what I like about the 5-axis, what makes me really hang on to this and want to research it more versus just saying horizontal is the route is, why can't you do that? If you had a 5-axis machine that had 8 pallets, why can't you run during the day the stuff you want to do, the R&D, the fun stuff, the tinkering stuff, learning stuff, pushing yourself, testing stuff out, videos, whatever, and then when you're not doing that stuff, you would just immediately switch back to the production stuff. We have the Pearson RotoVice. Jay's letting us try one on test, which probably is very nice of Jay. We appreciate that. So we're going to put one of his RotoVices on this. It's really not probably the best fit. It's a little bit big. We'd have to put a riser up if we wanted to use all 4 sides. We'll just test it with one side at first, but it's going to let us do something I love, which is fail fast, fail cheap. How does a 5-axis work having a 4-sided system on it? If we really did a full-blown 5-axis, we'd probably build some dedicated tombstone type fixtures, but you can do that. You can have a 5-axis machine that has little tombstones that machines multiple parts at a time, lights out. You need to have plenty of tool changers, you need to have plenty of pallets to make it kind of work. Not as productive as a horizontal, but we're not necessarily needing to go to level 10 production. We just need to get another spindle, have something that can run lights out or unattended during the day, and handle increased volume of stuff, if that makes sense. So that's what we're thinking. I'm trying to start nailing this down, this stuff down again, taking the emotion out, and putting it more into the data. What are the footprints? What are the machine prices? What are features, optionalities? One of the things with the 5-axis is you might be able to get a 5-axis that doesn't have automation at time of purchase, but has it as a turnkey, like upgradable thing. I don't really like that idea, but it would help reduce the initial purchase price. And so that's the other final thing. And I think this is important to be aware of, but it's also important to keep yourself in check, which is Section 179. Financially, it would make sense to buy a machine this year. I'm not going to do that if it doesn't make sense otherwise. Don't let taxes and finances drive your business. Let your business drive them. But boy, it would make a lot of sense to buy a machine in 2018 because in the U.S., Section 179 this year is letting you accelerate everything in the first year. I think we have a video on that, or some of our accounting basics videos. But basically, it will have the effect of significantly reducing the cash obligation to buy that machine. And what would be a better way to explain it was, good grief, don't delay thinking about this and then in November or December realize we really need a machine, but not buy it until February or March, because then you kind of negated a lot of that juice of the way this tax code works. And that is one of the things with Section 179 is, I believe, not that you have to order, you actually have to have it delivered. I'm not sure it has to be like plugged in and running, but it's got to be kind of on premises by the end of the year. So that's where we're at. I thought you guys would enjoy coming along. Let me know if you want to hear more about this stuff, go into even more detail. If we start putting some of the data together behind the machines that we're looking at and the criteria and stuff, we'll be happy to share that. Yeah, otherwise, folks, hope you enjoyed. Take care. See you soon.